The unexpected encounter. A warning ignored. The galaxy was peaceful. At least, that's what the majority of its inhabitants believed. The Galactic Council, a vast organization that governed countless species across the stars, was confident in their power. Alien civilizations, many of which had advanced technologies and vast fleets, felt secure. They had lived in peace for generations, with only minor skirmishes here and there. The galaxy was a well-oiled machine, and for the most part, things stayed in balance. But something strange had begun to happen. Across different star systems, planets and civilizations started to receive the same mysterious transmission. It was short, cryptic, and yet, somehow, it felt important. The message was simple: humanity has arrived. At first, no one knew what to make of it. Humanity. Who were they? Sure, there were stories, rumors even. Some had heard about humans, a species from a world called Earth. They were supposedly a death world species, a planet where life was harsh, where only the strongest survived. But what did that really mean? The galaxy had seen hundreds of species, each with their own dangerous characteristics. What could humanity possibly do that would make them stand out among the stars? The Galactic Council's high-ranking officials brushed off the message. They had dealt with the most dangerous creatures and beings the galaxy had ever known. They had seen deadly wars, advanced weaponry, and civilizations built on pure force. The idea that a single species, one that hadn't even mastered the stars like the others, could pose a serious threat seemed laughable. The Council dismissed the message as nothing more than a joke, or a glitch. After all, what could humanity do to threaten the galaxy's delicate balance? They had only just begun to explore space, and even then, their efforts were mostly limited to their own solar system. But, as it would soon become clear, the message was far from a joke. And humanity's arrival wasn't something to be dismissed so lightly. Days passed, and the message was forgotten. At least, by most. There were whispers in the corners of the galaxy. The more paranoid species spoke in hushed tones about humanity's potential, but they were quickly dismissed as conspiracies. After all, the Council had spoken. The matter was settled. That was until, one fateful day, the first human ship arrived. It wasn't a massive fleet. Not yet, anyway. It was just one ship, a sleek and technologically advanced vessel that appeared in the galactic outskirts, far from the central hubs of power. But this ship wasn't like anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its design was streamlined, elegant, and efficient, with technology far beyond what anyone had expected from such a young species. The aliens in the surrounding star systems had no idea what to make of it. But it was only a single ship, and it was far from the most advanced technology the galaxy had to offer. For the first few days, it did nothing but drift, silent, unmoving. The aliens watching from afar assumed it was some sort of probe or recon vessel, perhaps a scout sent out to test the waters. But then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the ship activated. It launched a communication wave across the galaxy, an encrypted signal sent straight to the Galactic Council. The message was short, to the point. "We are here. Prepare yourselves." This time, the Council couldn't ignore it. There was something in the tone, something unsettling. It wasn't a typical message of peace or diplomacy, nor was it a declaration of war. It was a warning, a challenge. But to whom? And why now? The Council scrambled to analyze the message. Technicians worked day and night to decrypt it, but every attempt came up short. Whoever had sent the signal knew their technology. Their encryption methods were near impossible to break. The Council's officials, however, remained confident. Humanity had no fleet, no allies. They were a species of weak beings, isolated in their own corner of the galaxy. The Council had dealt with countless threats in the past, and they didn't need to worry about some isolated species with primitive technology. Or so they thought. As the days passed, they continued to monitor the ship, but no further messages came. It simply stayed there, hanging in space, like an ominous cloud, waiting for something. And then it happened. Humanity's fleet, a force of unimaginable power, emerged from the depths of space. The galaxy had seen nothing like it before. No warning, no fanfare, just an explosion of force and firepower that could only be described as pure destruction. The ship that had first arrived wasn't just a scout. It had been a harbinger, a warning that had gone ignored. The message humanity sent that day was clear. They were no longer the helpless species they had once been, and the galaxy was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The Council, once confident in their ability to control the galaxy, now found themselves shaken, caught off guard by a species they had underestimated. The calm before the storm was over, and no one was prepared for the chaos humanity would bring. The moment that had been ignored, dismissed, and written off by the most powerful beings in the galaxy had arrived. And now, there was no turning back. The unleashing of power. The Galactic Council had spent decades maintaining a delicate balance between the countless species of the galaxy. For years, the most advanced races had exchanged knowledge, trade, and occasionally, conflict. But overall, it was an era of peace, or at least what the Council considered peace. The power dynamics between species, though tense at times, were well understood. No one expected a species as young as humanity to disrupt that balance. And yet, the arrival of humanity's fleet shattered that illusion. The first sign of the fleet's true power came when the solitary human ship that had been drifting in the outskirts of the galaxy suddenly activated its weapon systems. The ship emitted a pulse of energy so strong that it overwhelmed the sensors of nearby systems, distorting all communications for several hours. The wave hit the Galactic Council's central hub, causing a temporary blackout across the Council's communication networks. The fleet, once a hidden unknown, had arrived. The message humanity had sent earlier, "Prepare yourselves," was no longer just words. It was a warning that every species in the galaxy should have heeded. The Council's command center erupted into chaos as alarms blared and red lights flashed. No one had anticipated this. Humanity's fleet was not just one ship. It was an armada, a vast collection of warships, each one bristling with weaponry that had never been seen before. Ships materialized from every corner of the galaxy, emerging like ghosts from deep space. Their technology was crude by comparison to the most advanced civilizations, but what humanity lacked in finesse, they made up for in sheer power and relentless determination. Each ship was a fortress of destruction, a weapon built for one purpose: to annihilate anything that stood in their way. The Council immediately convened an emergency meeting. Heads of state from dozens of species gathered in a massive chamber, their faces grim as they stared at the holographic projections of humanity's ships. One by one, the representatives spoke, their voices laced with disbelief. How could this be? How could such a young and supposedly primitive species possess such an overwhelming force? We underestimated them. One of the Council leaders, a tall and imposing alien from a race known for their intelligence and diplomacy, said quietly. His voice was filled with regret. We believed their arrogance would lead them to failure. We never considered that they would be able to fight back with such force. They were too quiet. Another Council member, an insectoid species with multifaceted eyes, added. They hid their capabilities well, hiding behind their small, isolated planets. We never saw the threat coming. The room was filled with murmurs of agreement. Humanity had been quiet, unassuming. But in that silence, they had been preparing. They had been watching the galaxy, studying the Council's weaknesses, learning the ways of war. They had built their strength, waiting for the moment to strike. And now, that moment had arrived. As the human fleet drew closer to the galactic core, their ships were met by an alliance of military forces. The Council, fearing the worst, had hastily organized a defense. A coalition of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy mobilized, each one determined to stop humanity's advance before it was too late. The first engagement was unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed. The human ships, though smaller in number, fought with unparalleled ferocity. Their tactics were unpredictable, unlike anything the galaxy's military experts had prepared for. They were not bound by tradition or by the established rules of warfare. They fought with the raw savagery of a species that had fought to survive on a death world, where life and death were constantly at odds. In the opening battles, humanity's tactics left the galaxy reeling. Their ships hit without warning, disappearing into deep space before the enemy could react. They used speed and precision, striking at weak points in the enemy fleets, exploiting any vulnerability with brutal efficiency. It was clear that the human fleet was not playing by the usual rules. They were taking risks that no other species would dare to take. They were unpredictable, and that was their greatest strength. The Council was desperate. Their fleets were powerful, but humanity's tactics were unlike anything they had ever faced. The other species in the galaxy had grown complacent, relying on their superior technology and overwhelming numbers. But humanity had something else, a deep, burning will to survive and to protect their own. It was that will, that refusal to back down, that made them unstoppable. In the second battle, the human fleet descended upon the largest military alliance the Council had ever assembled. Ships clashed in the cold void of space, with energy blasts lighting up the darkness. The Council's forces were more advanced, but humanity's ferocity shattered their confidence. The humans didn't wait for orders. They didn't hesitate. They acted, and they acted with violence that the galaxy had never seen. The first wave of destruction had begun. Humanity was proving something that the galaxy had never considered, that they were not just survivors. They were warriors, and they had come to take their place in the galaxy, a place they would earn with blood and fire. The Council's hopes of containing the human threat were dashed in those early moments. Their military strategies, their alliances, and their advanced technology could not match the fury of a species that had learned to fight for its survival every single day. The galaxy was in shock. The species that had once seemed so insignificant had now become a force of chaos and destruction. The Council had made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And now, there was no way to stop them. As the battles raged on, the galaxy began to realize that the true cost of their ignorance would be far greater than they could have ever imagined. Humanity's arrival had not just shattered the peace. It had awakened a beast, a force of nature that would reshape the galaxy forever. The Council was broken. The once mighty alliance was now facing an enemy that wouldn't back down. And the worst part, humanity hadn't even revealed all their power yet. What the galaxy had witnessed so far was just the beginning. The storm was only starting, and there was no telling how much destruction it would bring. The tide of battle quickly turned. Even those species known for their military might could not stand up to the constant assault. Their ships, designed for precision and defense, were overwhelmed by humanity's sheer will to fight, and humanity's hunger for victory only grew stronger with each passing moment. As the battle wore on, it became clear that humanity had no intention of slowing down. The Council, once confident in its ability to maintain order, now found itself in a desperate fight for survival. The galaxy's mightiest fleets were crumbling under the relentless pressure of the species they had failed to take seriously. For the first time in eons, the Council's leaders began to question everything they had once known. They had underestimated humanity. And now, they were paying the price. Their perfect order was falling apart, piece by piece, in the face of an enemy that had no regard for mercy, no respect for rules. The first victory for humanity had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The entire Council had been caught off guard, blindsided by the unrelenting onslaught of humanity's forces. But that was only the beginning. What had started as a small, unexpected conflict was now a full-blown war, and the galaxy's greatest powers were finding themselves outmatched at every turn. Humanity had proven something vital that day. They were not just survivors. They were warriors, and they had no intention of being pushed around anymore. The galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity's ruthless momentum A galaxy in ruins. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and now it was paying the price. The Council's forces had been shattered in the first wave, and the once mighty fleet was now scattered, confused, and in full retreat. The shock of humanity's tactics, chaotic, brutal, and relentless, had crippled the alien powers. This was not just a battle for survival, it had become a statement. Humanity would not be ignored. After the victory in the Xeten system, humanity's fleet surged forward, sweeping through previously secure areas. The galaxy's strongest military powers were in full disarray, struggling to organize any kind of coherent defense against an enemy that operated without the constraints of traditional war strategies. Humanity's unpredictability had thrown them off balance, and there was no way to recover. The Varkas, once a race of powerful telepathic tacticians, struggled to adapt. Their methods were based on careful thought and anticipation, but humanity didn't give them the luxury of time. Their ships moved in ways that didn't follow any recognized patterns. In one instant, they'd attack with pinpoint precision. In the next, they'd pull back, only to return with a barrage of fire from an entirely different direction. It was madness, and yet it was brilliant. Why are they attacking us like this? A Varkas commander, who had witnessed the onslaught firsthand, muttered in disbelief. They don't respect the battlefield. They're not making tactical sense. They're fighting with pure instinct. One of his officers, staring at the holographic display of the battlefield, could only shake his head. This is beyond tactics. This is a force of nature. Elsewhere, the once proud Toxeri were beginning to feel the pressure. They were a species known for their cybernetic enhancements and advanced technological systems, capable of outmatching most fleets with their sheer firepower. But humanity's relentless assault, combined with their ability to move unpredictably, had left their fleets vulnerable. Their once indomitable fleets were now falling apart, one ship at a time. Activate the shields. Divert power to the forward cannons. A Toxeri captain barked, but it was too late. Before the order could be fully executed, a human warship sliced through their formation like a blade cutting through fabric. It was as if humanity didn't care about traditional tactics. They didn't care about making their moves predictable. Their only goal was to obliterate anything that stood in their way. Despite the growing chaos, the Council's leaders remained in denial. Their arrogance and pride had led them to underestimate humanity. They refused to believe that such a young, primitive species could pose a serious threat. Now, however, they were starting to see the full extent of humanity's power. The human fleet is advancing through the Epsilon system, one of the Council's commanders reported. Our forces there are already overwhelmed, and they're pushing further into our territory. We're not sure how much longer we can hold our defenses. A deep silence fell over the Council chambers. One of the higher-ranking members, a Luxan representative with scales of silver and purple, spoke up. This cannot continue. If we allow humanity to grow any stronger, they will dismantle everything we have worked for. The entire galaxy will be at their mercy. Desperation spread like wildfire through the Council. Plans that had taken centuries to build were unraveling in mere days. The combined might of countless civilizations was no match for the sheer ferocity of humanity's war machine, and there was no sign of humanity slowing down. Back on Earth, leaders and commanders watched with grim satisfaction as their forces pressed forward. They had known the risks, but they had also known the stakes. The fate of their species was at the mercy of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, but now the tables had turned. Humanity was not merely surviving, they were thriving. One of the human generals, an experienced veteran who had seen more battles than most could imagine, stood before a massive holographic display of the galaxy. His eyes scanned the map, watching as humanity's forces continued their relentless march. It's just the beginning, he muttered to himself, a grim smile on his face. We'll show them all. There are no second chances. His words resonated across the fleet. Each soldier, each officer, and each pilot felt the same surge of determination. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was humanity's declaration. They were here to stay, and no one would push them out. The galaxy's most powerful races were on the verge of collapse. The once proud and invincible fleets now had no way of knowing where humanity would strike next. The Dithworlders, as the galaxy had come to call them, were everywhere, inescapable, unstoppable, and unyielding. The Council's forces were no match for them, and the inevitable truth was beginning to settle in. Humanity would not be stopped. There was no mercy in this war, no room for negotiation. Humanity had made its decision. It would fight until the very last enemy was destroyed. And as the chaos continued to spread through the galaxy, one thing became clear: no one would be safe. Not from humanity's wrath, not from their might. Humanity's cruel resurgence. The reckoning begins. The death toll was rising, and the galaxy was suffocating under the weight of humanity's unrelenting advance. No one was safe. Not the alien counselors who once believed themselves untouchable, nor the countless civilizations that had flourished in the shadow of their dominion. Humanity had arrived, and with it, the cold, brutal reckoning of what it meant to cross the wrong species. In the heart of the Council's capital, an emergency meeting was convened. The rooms buzzed with frantic energy as reports flooded in from all sectors. The most respected commanders, many of whom had seen centuries of warfare, were at a loss for answers. They had believed themselves superior, wise, strategic, and invincible. They had dismissed humanity as little more than a curiosity, an outlier in a galaxy that thrived on order. But that belief had shattered like glass. We cannot stop them. We can't even predict them. A Githora general, leader of the Galactic Fleet, spoke hoarsely. His voice shook with fear. Every tactic we've relied on, every strategy we've honed over millennia, humanity has destroyed it. Their unpredictability. It's like fighting a storm. Another representative, a high-ranking Andromean diplomat, clenched her fists, her voice cracking with tension. And what of our fleets? What's left? Humanity is everywhere now. The galaxy is burning, and they're not slowing down. The Luxon, the oldest and most politically powerful race in the galaxy, shifted uneasily. They had prided themselves on their unity, their collective wisdom and influence, but even they could not contain the panic now rising in their hearts. It's not just an invasion, the Luxon leader said, his voice weak but full of gravitas. It's a slaughter. Our fleets are dying faster than we can replace them. The cosmic map flickered as a series of attacks were reported across multiple star systems. Human ships, with their dark, imposing silhouettes, tore through enemy lines with almost mechanical precision. They struck quickly, then disappeared just as fast, like shadows in the dark. The fear that had taken hold of the galaxy was palpable. Some thought to negotiate, but every message sent to the human fleet was ignored or answered with violence. Humanity had come for one thing, and one thing only: vengeance, and to show the galaxy they had no mercy. One of the more experienced human commanders stood on the bridge of his ship, gazing out into the swirling chaos. The galaxy, once a place of comfort for many species, now trembled before them. In his mind, the mission had become crystal clear. They thought they could control us, he muttered to his officers. Thought they could push us around like we were insignificant. But now we're teaching them a lesson. He paused for a moment, staring at the vastness of space before him. This isn't just a battle. It's a statement. We're not going to stop. Not until every last one of them understands that humanity is no longer a species to be trifled with. Across the galaxy, other humans, soldiers, tacticians, even civilians, felt the same fierce drive. It wasn't just about defeating their enemies anymore. It was about showing the galaxy that they had earned their place in the stars. Humanity's resilience, their tenacity, and their unwavering determination were their greatest weapons. The galaxy's mighty fleets, once considered impenetrable, were falling apart. On the battlefield, A lone human fighter, strapped into his cockpit, laughed coldly as he launched another wave of missiles at an enemy vessel. They didn't see this coming, he thought to himself as the explosion from the alien ship lit up the darkness. They never do. But as humanity's forces swept across the galaxy, another truth began to emerge. The destruction wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Even the bravest alien warriors began to feel doubt, fear, and uncertainty. The once unshakable confidence of the Council's military leaders was crumbling, replaced by a gnawing fear of what was to come. And it wasn't just the military leaders who were affected. Entire populations began to flee their worlds, scattering in all directions, as if humanity's unstoppable wrath could not be contained. Civilians, refugees from countless systems, found themselves with nowhere to turn, no place to hide. Even the distant stars offered no refuge. Back in the heart of human territory, a new order was rising. Earth's leaders had no illusions. The galaxy had not just witnessed the rise of humanity, it had witnessed the birth of a new power, one that had been tempered in the harshest conditions and forged in the fires of survival. They had nothing to lose and everything to prove. As another battle broke out in the distance, humanity's forces rallied under a single banner: survival. They weren't just fighting for their homes, their families, or their world. They were fighting for their right to exist in a universe that had once seen them as weak, as nothing more than a footnote in galactic history. And with every battle they won, every fleet they obliterated, the universe's understanding of humanity shifted. The rest of the galaxy, once united in their assumption of dominance, now realized that humanity was a force of nature, one that could not be stopped, one that demanded respect. The day humanity showed there would be no mercy had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As the battle raged on, there was only one thing that the galaxy could be sure of: humanity would never stop until their final, merciless victory had been achieved. The ruthless offensive, the galaxy's new order. Across the stars, fear spread like wildfire. Humanity had made its point. They were no longer the underdog. They were the hammer, and the galaxy was their anvil. No amount of diplomacy, no pleading, no coalition of alien powers could halt their advance. Every day their forces gained ground, and the once dominant civilizations crumbled in their wake. On the bridge of the flagship Exodus, Commander Riley stood tall, overseeing the galaxy-spanning operations with a grim satisfaction. The strategies they had employed were brutal, but effective. Humanity had learned from their past mistakes, from the countless times they had been crushed, underestimated, and discarded. Now those who had once doubted them were experiencing the fruits of their hubris. Target the weak points of their supply lines. Make them feel the full weight of our resolve, Riley commanded, her voice unwavering. The crew aboard the Exodus worked in a synchronized frenzy, executing orders with precision. Humanity had perfected the art of war, not just with weapons, but with sheer willpower. With the last of the alien ships scattered in space and their defenses shattered, Genar Prime's leaders were left with nothing but their failure. They had bet everything on a strategy of underestimating humanity, and now they were paying the ultimate price. Commander Riley's voice came through the comms, clear and calm. "This is the end. Genar Prime, your reign is over." As the last of the enemy forces fell, the surviving alien leaders were captured or pulled into the depths of space. Humanity's dominance was assured, and the Galactic Council that had once been so powerful now lay in ruins. The galaxy that had been ruled by the alien races for centuries was now under the control of humanity. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted. The human fleet had done the impossible. They had brought the galaxy to its knees. It wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. Humanity was no longer the prey. They had become the predators. They had proven that no one, not even the most powerful alien races, could stand against them when they decided to fight back. In the final moments, as humanity's flag was raised across the newly claimed worlds, Commander Riley stood before her crew, her face grim yet resolute. "We've proven our place in this universe. Let no one forget, humanity doesn't ask for permission. We take what we need, and we protect what is ours. There are no second chances. Her words echoed across the stars, a warning to any who would challenge humanity's place in the cosmos. The galaxy was forever changed. Humanity had shown them, when they decide to fight, they'd fight to win. The galaxy was theirs for the taking. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check him.